Hey everyone, it's Denise Brown. Thank you so much for being here. This is a morning of support for working family caregivers. So we're thrilled to be in the same room, so to speak, with other working family caregivers. And our goal for this presentation and these series of presentations is to really start a conversation about what it's like to juggle your career and your caregiving responsibilities. So our first presenter is Trudy. She's going to kick us off and help us start the conversation about working and caregiving. So Trudy, start us off.
Sure, I'd love to. Let me share my screen. Good morning, everyone. My name is Trudy Madden, and I'm thrilled to be here with you this morning. And I'd like to thank Denise for bringing us together this morning and putting this all together and inviting us to let you know about our caregiving experiences. I'm very honored to let you know about this. I was a caregiver for my mom and dad. My dad had Parkinson's, and at the time I was working full time. So I understand, again, this is my journey. It is my own, but I learned a lot along the way. I learned actually little things. When I look back, it's just a few little things, but they were by trial and error, and they helped immensely, in my opinion. It was looking back, that was something that I thought got me through it. It helped me, and it helped me to be the best caregiver that I could be at the time for my mom and dad. And it also helped me to be the best employee that I could be at the time. What I would like to just touch on is really, how did we get here? And if you're working or trying to work now, what are the challenges that you're facing right now? What does your boss expect of you? And actually, what do your loved ones expect of you right now? Some of the things that I look at, and when I thought back on it, it really was what I consider crisis caregiving, because these things are pretty obvious to me, but we're living longer, and a lot of us have a lot more complex things going on. Our seniors are living more independently. I know this was the case with my mom and dad. They were actually living independently for many years, and then we didn't realize until it almost snuck up on us that something was really going on that we had to pay attention to. Family members are providing unpaid caregiving hours. And at this point, also juggling this was the working full time or even part time, but the competing demands on our time. What I look back and said, wow, we're in crisis caregiving. And Denise has said this many times, who's a family caregiver? It's really everyone. If you think about it, all those people that you see around you. And when I was at my job, I thought, wow, it could be my coworker sitting right next to me. Why are they calling out for no reason? When I thought of it as no reason, but why are they distracted a lot at their job? It was perhaps my coworker, and ultimately it was me. What is the trend of this? Well, the family member that may need your help for little things. Maybe it's that grocery shopping. Maybe it's, oh, can you mail these bills for me? Or can you come over and help me with these boxes? Take them down for me because I can't do it at this point. Maybe that transitions to someone who definitely needs your help. I know this happened to us, as I mentioned, but it was more about, wow, my mom would come back from the doctor visit and with my dad, and she would say, everything is fine. The doctor said, he's all good. We're not having any issues at the moment. And I really, in my gut, I knew that this was probably not the case. And I definitely had to get involved. When I looked at who was being impacted by what was going on with my mom and dad, really it was, in the beginning, my immediate family, my distant relatives, which I would talk to about, I knew something was going on, but it was my work coworkers and those people that were on my team at work that I really didn't think about at the time, but as it progressed, it surely was my coworkers. And the next tier out was all the things that were going around in our town, in their local. When my dad fell, it became, are we contacting the police or the EMS squad? They were kind of, the local services were all impacted by what was going on with my dad's health. So what's your situation? Are you working now? I'd love to stop at this point and see if we can take a, what I call a mini survey, and go in the chat area if you wouldn't mind, and just take a little poll. What's your current status? Are you working full or part-time now? Do you own your own business perhaps and your hours are flexible? Have you even left the workforce to provide that care? If you wouldn't mind just putting some things in the chat room, be great, and we can almost see, yeah, a lot of full-time work, unfortunately. And again, I was feeling that at the time as well. And own your own business, of course. Thank you. That was really helpful. It kind of gives us a moment to say, wow, things are going on and they are part of this struggle between your loved one and your job. And that struggle. So what are you feeling right now? There's a lot of things that I felt that were actually physical symptoms. Maybe you're feeling those things that become that knot in your stomach. Maybe it's that irritability. I know I was grumpy a lot of the time. It wasn't because I had deadlines at work, but it also, maybe that was it, but it was also what was going on with my mom and dad. I was always tired. Overall, for me, it became that sense of duty. And being the oldest of four of my siblings, that to me was this overarching sense that, wow, I had to do this. I had to help them. I had to take care of them. I was pulled in many directions, and that sense of overwhelm was another thing that I couldn't get out from under for so long. I looked at this as my intensified feelings. And the reason I bring this up is because they had progressed as my dad's disease had progressed. The sadness that overwhelmed me was because I didn't have this control over his illness. I saw his physical symptoms take over and progress to the cognitive symptoms that took over. And it impacted not just myself, but our family. And the tear went out to, okay, what was the impact again to those other services that we talked about? I had great guilt feelings all the time. Was I being the best caregiver daughter that I could be? Was I doing the best job that I could do at work? And then ultimately, the fear also kicked in for me. Is like, how bad is this going to get? Every day brought something new almost. It felt that way, but the fear itself, I went to work every day with that feeling inside, that gut in my stomach saying, when am I going to get that next call? When is he going to fall? When am I going to get the panic call from my mom to say, you need to come home right away? So what's the real cost to you? Are you feeling those physical symptoms? Are they really getting a hold on you? I felt this tension across my shoulders a lot at work. I realized this was at work, and I felt a real stress on my shoulders, but I realized it was actually my muscles where I was holding that tenseness with me, waiting for that next call. The financial side, I didn't touch on this yet, but I really, when I thought back on this, that was huge to me. Was I going to have to quit my job to actually do and be full time with my mom? My mom couldn't handle it as a caregiver to my dad, but was I ultimately going to have to quit my job? And what were the financial impacts going to be for my husband and I at this point? It was overwhelming. So let's take a look at, what job challenges are you having right now? Are they timeline based? Do you have a project team that you're involved with? Do you have to be at your job at a certain hour in the morning? Is it a strict punctuality issue that determines, Are you meeting your goals as far as your job performance goes? Do you have to make key decisions for the group? And this is an interesting one. What about an open concept at work? For a time there were many places that had cubicles and office space available to workforce personnel. But then it was really a thing to go to an open concept. And I know this hit me at that point, that this provided no privacy. When I had to make calls to the doctors on behalf of my mom and dad, there was no privacy involved in this. People heard what you were saying. People knew that if you were going out into the hallway, you were making a personal call. So there was this real change in the dynamics of the work environment. Are you able to have flexibility when you're expected to answer emails? Do they expect it right away? Does your boss say, wow, you weren't on top of that? Did you even look at the email that the client sent? Or do you have this flexibility where you can answer them within a certain time frame? And how about your role, actually? In my case, I was a manager for a large group of entry-level employees. I was so fortunate at the time. I had two other managers that were in similar roles, and so we shared a large group of employees. They were my backup. To be honest, that was one of the things that helped me. They were a backup manager, and I knew that I could rely on them as they could to me, and that was very helpful at the time. But a lot of you may not be in that situation, and how do you deal with that? Like, what are your challenges?
Trudy, I wonder if I could ask a question.
Of course.
How much information did you share with your backup managers around why you needed a little more backup from them?
Oh, exactly. Well, that was a challenge. I go to my next slide because it will answer that question. And I felt like I was a project manager for so many years. I was so frazzled all the time that I thought, what am I doing? Why am I not acting like a project manager at this point? The first part of that, it was to show leadership. And by leadership, I mean ownership of my situation. I had to tell my boss what was going on with me. I had to let them know, let my upper management know I was in this situation. I had to be very open and honest, and it was hard. It was the hardest thing. I didn't want to do it. I didn't, I had to dig deep for the courage to do this, because ultimately that meant I had to tell my coworkers, my co-managers, and my team what was going on. And, that was a vulnerability that I felt. Would I lose my job over it? Was my yearly review or bonus going to reflect this negatively because they all knew? But I also felt it wasn't fair to them when I perhaps had to leave. And there's an interesting, we'll touch on later, but I know Beth will touch on this in her presentation on creating an emergency plan for all of this. This led me to work. My manager was so great when we sat down actually to talk about it. It was about creating a plan. What happens if I got the call that mom needed me right away? We put on a plan, and the first part of it was I would let my co-managers know. I would let my boss know immediately that I had to leave within a 10 minutes, 15 minutes, whatever the time frame. But here's what would happen. I would let them know, the next part, communicating. As soon as I knew my status going to the hospital, what would happen, I would then let them know what the update was. Was dad going to be there overnight? Was he going to be released? And I would know what my status would then be in terms of how I could show up for them. So they knew if I was there overnight, they would really take over and kind of bear the next phase of even letting clients know if need be. That was kind of the last. I didn't want that level to go through, but they were able to know and help kind of manage the situation at the time. And yet being organized and planning ahead, creating that plan, the backup plan, the emergency plan. And if I had to be out even longer because dad was going to be discharged, to find maybe some home health aides and kind of get that all in place and in gear, I was going to be out for a while. So the next phase would be that this is when I was going to check in after maybe I got them settled at night, and they could rely on me to follow my part of the plan as much as I relied on them to carry me through this particular crisis moment. And it was so helpful to know that we were all working together. I didn't want them to resent me at the time, but by not telling them, I think that could have created that resentment. So what you may ask, what can you do about it now if you're in that similar situation, and perhaps you can use some of those project management skills? Even just planning ahead or delegating might be something, but I really feel like telling your boss and creating that plan becomes in the hierarchy of things to do might be really helpful for the moment. Asking for flexibility. This is where it comes in. Like, do you have that flexibility to look at emails but not respond to them until you can have a moment of your own aloneness, or throughout the caregiving process? Can you just break away for a while and have that flexibility to answer emails from your coworkers or clients? And then take a look at really what your options are. I was really fortunate to know I live in New Jersey. So New Jersey, of course, it's a federal FMLA, the Medical and Leave Act, but New Jersey also has a Family Leave Act. New Jersey, on top of that, has just enacted what's called the Family Leave Insurance, which can help with paying for benefits when you have to take some time off, whereas the other may just keep your job secure. So it's worth looking into the benefits that are the options that are offered in terms of your company benefits and available resources. Some even have support groups that are in place that can help you to find these benefits more quickly. So let's take a moment to look at what your caregiving tasks might be. And I thought, wow, I really should be acting like a project manager here too. Yes, they're tasks often. If you can take away the emotional part, grocery shopping and contacting some of the home maintenance piece of this can be looked at as just tasks in itself. Maybe it's bill paying. Those things can become a task that can fall into this. Be organized about it, but it can also save you time in the long run. I remember my time management part of this came into checking on mom and dad as I was the first thing going to work. And you asked in your poll in the beginning, what was the hardest part of your day? And that was probably my hardest, because there was this overwhelming urge that once I checked on them, could I actually get on the road to go to work? It was like, wow, if I'm in the car and I'm actually going, maybe my day will be okay once I accomplish my task of checking on them in the morning. So allowing myself that breath to then get in the car and focus on work and focus on the things that I had to take care of was really important to me at the time. This is my journey. I was so fortunate to have a sister and two brothers. I know every family is different, family dynamics. May or may not you may not have people that you can rely on. Some families members say, I don't want any part of this. I was so fortunate, and I just want to share this because this is where we actually created a plan ourselves. My sister was, I was fortunate, she was an RN. She took over all of the medical pieces, evaluated the lab results. Did they look right? She kind of gave us the overall summary of how mom and dad were doing, which I was grateful for. My other brother, I say wow to this. He took over the bill paying every piece of this on a day-to-day basis. I was so fortunate that he contacted the elder law attorneys for us. put that all in motion, got mom and dad's will updated and the advance directive. So he was so on top of everything. And that was one piece off my shoulders at the time. My other brother, I laugh because he was like, I don't want any part of the doctor visits. I don't want to come over and help dad get out of bed. I don't want any part of it, but I can come and fix their remote when they have problems with it. He took care of the home maintenance and repairs. He was all on top of that. One of the things I also want to share is that I talk about combining things later on, but he would say, all right, they have to have their heating and air conditioning checked. He put them on the same plan as he had at his home. So the same day the repair people came to his home, they then went over to my mom and dad's and did the same thing. He was present for that, and it was another check off our box. So we were fortunate that he took that on. It left me to really focus on our home aides that came. I could provide that oversight, and it gave me the ability to actually be that person that could interact with those agencies. And it was a job into itself. It became like someone that had to be on top of that. So that fell in my area. I also was able, at this point, I say spiritual and social connections. I was able to keep that from my mom. It was important for her to attend church. She was able to get out. We took her with us and just had a little bit of alone time with her at that point, as well as take care of the grocery shopping, which was fairly easy, and I was able to do that for them. So you may say, but where do I begin to look at all the tasks? And for me, I really just say, look at the big picture. Look at what you can do with all of the things that are going on for your caree. Look at yourself, of course, and what your situation is, and then separately take your work tasks. And if you can prioritize and combine certain things, definitely outsource when you can. I think COVID was something important to us to say, wow, you can grocery shop online and it can be delivered to your trunk in just an hour if need be. So take advantage of the things that really can help with that in combining. Prioritizing, I remember one of the things that really helped, actually, because of my project management background, was Excel spreadsheets. And when I put our tasks for my brothers and sisters on a spreadsheet and said my brother was going to take care of the heating and the air conditioning unit this day, he went in and he updated that and said, done. I was so great. When I saw the done's on the Excel spreadsheet, it was so relieving for me to take that one piece of stress off of my shoulders. It almost allowed me to then refocus on my work responsibilities because I knew that someone else was taking care of that.
Trudy, you've got just about 2 minutes.
Okay. Other people want to help. I say allow them to help. My daughter was able to help by just preparing meals and freezing them for us. She said, Mom, what can I do? You have all this going on. I said, this is such a big help to me to have that ready when I was going home after a long day. Allow them. If someone is offering, it gives you back that control. I felt that way. I was getting little pieces of my control back, and it may also be helpful for you. We can take another moment maybe to say, what in the chat room, what are the areas that I spoke about? Maybe that might help you. Is it just getting organized? Or is it really at work, prioritizing the things that you have to do? If something like that can help you, planning ahead, and just perhaps this would be something that you can use to balance your life, but be so helpful to know if any of these things can help you. And yeah, I see planning is really good. The time management part, you may never think about that, but allowing one day a week to do certain things, or doctor visits for mom and dad, really having that plan is so important. So by managing and looking at this as the big picture and combining, ask for help, but really be able and open to accept the help when offered, can really allow you to gain back some of that control. This was so important to me to survive this journey, was gaining back my control. I became a receiver. And I say that it's hard for me. It was hard at the time, but you can be a giver, but you have to be open to also receive help when people offer that. Be specific. That's important. Like I was specific about the meals. Be specific if someone's going to mail your letters for you on the way because they go right by the post office and that would be out of your way. That's help. And know that being something good is often good enough. I remember vetting home care agencies at the time, and I said, wow, this is challenging, but at the time we chose one. It was good enough for that time frame. And I was so grateful that down the road, yes, we had to change, but it was good enough at the time. I was able to, what I consider, thrive through it because I realized that being present while I was at work, blocking out my caregiving responsibilities, making 1 hour a day my time to make the calls to the doctor visits for them, or following up with my sister on the latest lab results. But the other 7 hours, I was present at work. So I say that it helped me focus. Being present at home, not talking about my caregiving tasks with my husband. We were present. We walked together. We were able to just talk about normal things, being present, but being present with caregiving. And this really helped me. My dad went on hospice and I was able to just sit with him, being present, having a cup of tea with my mom, because unfortunately she was gone about a year after my dad. But I remember thinking back, being able to be present by just managing the rest of the things going on with work and my life was so helpful.
Yeah, Trudy,
I truly hope.
you're a couple minutes over. So just want to give you that heads up.
And I thank you for that time. I really feel that it's a journey for all of us. And hopefully some of the tips were just little, but maybe they'll help as well.
Okay, thank you so much, Trudy.
You're welcome.